Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest 8-second gaming. In today's video, we are going to be talking about 25 tips to make you a better Apex player. There's a lot to cover, so let's start breaking it down. But just quickly, if you guys are here, it's clear you're looking to take your Apex skill to the next level. So why haven't you checked out the GameLeap website yet? Over there, we have top-level coaches creating the best, most highly informative guides to make you the best player you could possibly be. We have legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, and much more. And our coaches have thousands of hours of in-game playtime experience. They've been to Predator, they've been to ALGS finals. They have a ton of knowledge and they're sharing that with you. So click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, and start to improve today. But okay, with that out of the way, let's hop into things. And to start off with tip number 1, you can save craft materials when you only need to craft ammo for one weapon. I think a lot of us have been in this situation where you really need ammo for just one particular gun, but you don't have a ton of crafting materials. So if you drop the gun that you don't need ammo for, the game gives you a half off discount for the ammo that you do need. And you'll only craft that, so you won't have to pick up the stack of ammo that you don't need, throw that on the ground, and then continue to craft. Saves you materials and time. Moving into tip number 2 though, being jump master can be pretty stressful. A lot of times people actually don't know when they should be dropping. They just kind of go off of feeling. And if you are solo queuing like I do quite often, you will know that a lot of people, those feelings are very wrong. So when you're jump master, you should ping the location that you're trying to go. And the sweet spot that you want to jump is around 400 to 450 meters. That way you'll be able to fly directly there and land before a lot of other teams. If you're landing before teams, it gives you a massive advantage because by the time they're on the ground, you've already got a weapon, you're able to just shoot them. Tip number 3 though, when you're climbing, you stick to whatever you are climbing. This doesn't just happen with Revenant, it happens with every single legend. Revenant just kind of highlights it a little bit more. But you can use that because you're basically Spider-Man when you are sticking to that surface. So you can strafe while you are climbing up a wall, you can go side to side, or you can even go around a corner in some cases if the walls line up perfectly. This makes you a little bit more elusive and a little bit harder to shoot while you are climbing because while you're doing that, you are pretty vulnerable. So don't be just a climbing target. Moving into tip number 4, only kick doors when you have a teammate to back you up as soon as the door breaks. Kicking doors is one of the biggest traps in Apex. A lot of times you can hide behind doors and somebody will walk up and kick it 2 times, leaving them extremely open for you to counterplay. Even if you should have lost the fight, the initial damage you can get out after somebody kicked the door can turn the fight in your favor. So don't fall into that trap. Only kick a door when you have a teammate or unless the person on the other side is literally one shot. Moving into tip number 5, stop over relying on abilities. Yes, Apex is still moving into a heavy emphasis on abilities and using them a lot more often in fights, but I see people still overly relying on abilities. This gets highlighted with legends like Fuse, where you really want to use his knuckle cluster or his grenade launcher, stuff like that. But gun skill is still the most important skill in fights in order to win them. So when you're in fights, stop trying to use your abilities constantly. It's just going to get you killed and you're just going to lose the game and you're going to lose LP more than likely. Moving into tip number 6, if you are in a melee fight, you can actually get a slight advantage. If you jump while you are punching, the animation is actually faster because you do a kick instead of a punch. It's not extremely fast, it's very hard to catch, but it is still fast enough to give you that edge because other people are going to be a little bit slower. You can actually get 2 kicks off before somebody can get 2 punches off. And on top of that, it makes you a little bit harder to hit because your character model is going to be in the air. So unless somebody's able to track you and then punch, you are probably going to win that melee battle. Tip number 7, we're going back to the crafter because if you want to save your shield heals but you have some extra crafting materials, you can actually put a broken armor into the crafter and when it comes out, it will be full health. Now I know some people might be saying, well, if I have extra crafting materials, why wouldn't I just craft batteries? And sometimes your backpack space is going to be full. You don't have any room to craft batteries, but you just don't want to waste any shield heals. And on top of that, not only will it be full health, but you'll also actually get some Evo damage taken off. So you won't have to do as much damage to get to the next phase of your Evo armor, making red a lot easier to obtain. Tip number 8 though, stop overvaluing kills, especially when you are thirsting downs. I see this happen a ton, especially in solo queue. Teammates really overvalue kills. If they get somebody really low, they start to chase them without even thinking about it. That often leads them to be out of position and the enemy team can really take advantage on that. And even if you do end up getting your knock, if you get knocked in return, then you have just turned the fight from a winning fight to a potentially losing fight because you've evened the odds once again. If you get somebody super low, they are still going to be out of the fight because they have to heal. So take advantage of that and don't overvalue the kills. Same thing goes for when you're thirsting downs. If you overvalue that thirst, you can actually be caught out of position because you're not going to be paying attention to what the teammates are doing, and they could potentially get a team fire on you or get some really good initial damage while you are not looking at them. Tip number 9, know when to leave your team. Now this might sound a little bit counterintuitive for a team game, but yes, there are going to be moments in time in Apex where you do have to leave. This is typically when you are in a fight and you are in a losing fight. Instead of being a good captain and going down with the ship, you should just leave and save your team's RP. You could potentially loop back, get their banners, or even if you have a support on the team, you don't even need to go get the banners because you could just craft them somewhere else and revive them later on. But if you're not able to craft them or get the banners back, you can still salvage some of their LP because you will be getting placement points. They don't have to be alive to get those. And if you already had a ton of KP before that, it will be good for the team no matter what. Tip number 10, holding a power position and camping are not the same thing. This is one thing that I see a lot of people bring up whenever I talk about holding zone positions, but holding a power spot and showing your presence is not the same as camping. Yes, you are sitting in the same spot over and over, but in Apex, it's a little bit different. Because Apex is a battle royale, terminology does change a little bit. Camping would be you just literally sitting in a building, shotguns pointed at the door, and nothing else. But holding a power position, your team is still showing presence. You're sitting on top of the building, you're poking out the doors. You're letting other teams know that you are playing this spot. It is not a one-to-one comparison. Tip number 11, if you get nervous in fights, then you need to start abusing pub games. The reason that you get nervous in fights is because you don't get into those situations very often. So go into pub games and just start throwing yourself at fights. Pub games don't really matter. Nothing happens if you lose them. Yeah, your ego might get bruised a little bit, but in the long run, you're going to be getting better at the game. If you get into those situations over and over and over, you're going to learn a lot more about those situations and be less nervous in them, making you a better player overall. Tip number 12, get better callouts by streamlining your information. A lot of times when I see people make callouts, they have too many filler words. Filler words clog up your comms and make it take way too long to get the information that your team needs. Don't elongate them, just say what you have to say. Wraith hit, 22 blue, that's it. Tip number 13, stop trying to jam pack every single recoil pattern into your brain. You're not going to be able to learn them. For the majority of guns, all you have to do is pull straight down and you'll control most of the recoil just fine. Yes, some of the weapons like the Flatline or the Devotion, it's not going to work as well because they have a lot more unpredictable recoil patterns. But for the majority of guns in Apex, it will work. And if you don't have to jam pack every single recoil pattern into your brain, you're going to be able to focus a lot more on the fight. Focusing on the fight and not your recoil will lead to you noticing a lot more stuff in fights and winning a lot more of them. Tip number 14, if you can, don't fully empty your clip before reloading. It skips the extra little animation that will save you time, and that time can win you gunfights. I think a lot of us have been in that situation where you empty your entire mag and then you get caught in the animation of reloading, and then by the time you're done that, you're just dead. But those extra milliseconds that you save by reloading before the gun is actually empty can save your life. Tip number 15, having a favorite loadout that you use all the time is a good thing because you'll know those guns inside out and backwards. But remember, you have to be comfortable with every single weapon in the game, because if you land somewhere and your team needs your help but you don't have a gun that you're comfortable with, you're not going to be as useful. You should get to the point where you are comfortable using every single gun, and you can do this by just hopping in the firing range and playing around with them. You don't have to use them in every single game, you just have to know what they do and know how to play around them. Tip number 16, and I still can't believe that I have to say this, but when you're just running around, put your gun away. It makes you move faster, and moving faster means you get to places faster, you're more elusive, and you're harder to hit. There's a lot of benefits to it. I can't tell you how many times I still see randoms do this when I'm solo queuing, and it makes me want to cry and rip my hair out. Please, for my sanity, stop doing this. Tip number 17, remember, a rampage that has been charged up can break doors. This goes back to the tip before where I talk about kicking doors, but the rampage that is able to break doors can catch people off guard, making them a very easy kill. You're also not putting yourself at any disadvantage when you're doing this because you're not making yourself vulnerable. So if you're the type of person to run a rampage, always keep this in your back pocket. Tip number 18, thermites ignore knockdown shields. So if you need to thirst an enemy in order to get an armor swap or to stop giving them information in fights, then use a thermite instead of throwing yourself out of position. It'll do it a lot faster and a lot less messier than a lot of people can do it. Tip number 19, stop being a copy and paste bot. Do not copy other people's sensitivities one-to-one. You can use other people's sensitivities as kind of a guideline or a baseline to figure out what works for you, but you should always adjust based off of your needs. And don't be afraid to adjust your sensitivity mid-game. If you feel like something is off, change it, adjust it, and work with yourself. And over time, you will find a sensitivity that works perfect for you. Everyone is different, everyone has different needs, so use what works for you, not what works for someone else. Tip number 20, always warm up before playing ranked. This could be something as easy as aim labs or hopping on the firing range or even just going into some pub games. But you always need to be getting the blood flowing and get yourself into the mental space before you hop in a rank because you're putting LP on the line. If you really want to climb, you can't just throw yourself into a ranked game cold. You need to be warming up before that. Tip number 21, going back to some door stuff because you can actually open doors by shooting the handles with some weapons. Some, but not all, include the wingman, the 30-30, the L-star, and the longbow, but this can help you get some cheeky angles on teams who aren't expecting it because maybe they're watching a different part of the building, but it also helps to check to see if buildings are unoccupied because if you open the door and nobody closes it, you know that that building is more than likely free for your team to go and take. Small things like this can save your team in very sketchy situations. Tip number 22, grenades are still extremely underutilized by a lot of people. They can help you out in so many different situations, but learning tips and tricks like skynading can help you win a ton of fights and is easily one of the best skills to master. Go to the firing range, pick up a frag grenade, start to learn the arcs and the timings of everything, and you will see that you're able to get a lot more kills when you open up the initial damage of a frag grenade. Tip number 23, like the weapons, having a main legend is a great idea, but you still do also need to learn all of the legends. You need to know their skills and how they will want to use them in fights, because once you're able to do that, you will be able to counterplay a lot easier. You cannot be in a situation where you're fighting against a legend and you'll be like, oh my god, I have no idea what that person does. What are their abilities? You need to know all the legends and what they do. Tip number 24, don't fear round 1 storm. Too many people panic at the round 1 and even sometimes round 2 storm, but it actually doesn't hurt you that much and you can easily survive it with some medkits or some syringes. This gets especially highlighted when people are being gatekept. Teams will be holding them outside of zone, and they will panic because the zone's coming, so they throw themselves into a bad situation. But if this is you, tank zone, rotate to a different spot, you will be fine. And tip number 25, use discords to find teammates that share the same playstyle and would complement you. Stop rolling the dice while solo queuing. You need to start stacking the odds in your favor. And solo queuing is tough, so hop into some discords. The GameLeap Discord will be linked in the description. Talk to some people, figure out what kind of playstyle they have, what kind of playstyle you have, get a 3-stack and start to climb. But let me know your favorite Apex tip in the comments down below, and if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thanks all for watching. Once again, be taking game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.